Alright, here we go. Dragonflight, Prepatch, Arms Warrior. Starting off with a dungeon here. It's gonna be interesting. There's definitely been some changes. We'll talk about, we got some more accessible mobility that's great. Impending victories up here, you get that every time. There's also a movement speed upon killing things, which is nice. The mastery is the same as in Shadowlands, where you apply a bleed to things and the deep wounds, and so it does relatively little bleed damage, but it also does it makes the enemy take more damage from you. And then but the real things, the main difference as far as your damage goes is you have a lot more options for AoE damage now. So we'll talk about those after we kill some things here. So you can still do sweeping strikes, execute spam, it's still great. But now we got a few ways to do bleed damage, so bleed damage is sort of back, but it's just not in the deep wounds. It's through this rend ability. And specifically, you get Thunderclap with the Blood and Thunder talent, which applies rend to all nearby enemies. So we do that Thunderclap, and then it's got that bleed on all of them. Let's just smash some guys here. Add it over to this one since he's low health, so we can sweeping strike execute. So yeah, we're using the Spear of Bastion here and Thunderous Roar, which is sort of like the old Dragon Roar ability, but it also has a bleed on it. So what we want to do for AoE, we're using the Warbreaker thing so that the Colossus Smash is AoE, so enemies take more damage from you. And then you do that for AoE, then you do the Thunderclap, gives you the AoE rend, and then you do your Thunderous Roar and your Spear of Bastion for big cooldown AoE. Now, I'm not sure exactly what's the best order for all these, but and then you've also got Cleave. Now Cleave is great in that it's good for in that it applies deep wounds in AoE, because I'm not getting Blade Storm anymore. So being able to apply the deep wounds so that they take the how much percent more damage is it with this gear? 27% more damage from you. Being able to apply that in AoE is good. So yeah, maybe you're supposed to do that first, I don't know. Between that and Warbreaker first, get both of those so that the enemy takes more damage from all the other stuff you're doing. So yeah, apply the deep wounds to everybody with Cleave. Make everybody take 30% more damage from you with Warbreaker. apply the AoE rend with the thunderclap. It's all good stuff, and then you're using your thunderous roar and your spear of bastion, and then once you've done all that stuff, then you can go into your sweeping strikes and spam execute whenever you get the chance. And yeah, you just do great AoE damage. I'm not super able to focus on playing the right rotation at the moment, just trying to describe everything and not make the video terribly boring. So yeah, you gotta your rend and your thunderclap. Your rend and your deep wounds will expire at some point. There's a talent, I think, somewhere for making the bleed last longer. I don't remember if I got that in this version of the build. I've been playing around with talents a bunch, but this seems to be pretty good to me. So yeah, let's do this stuff. Oh, I forgot to talk Whirlwind also. So unfortunately, Whirlwind is still a really weak ability baseline. As a talent, this was a legendary power, I think, where if Whirlwind hits 3 or more enemies, it does extra damage. So I'm taking that. That definitely helps. So in these situations where there's lots of little guys, Whirlwind is pretty decent. If I had my Dragons or Thunderous Roar and Spear of Bastion up, I would have used it there still, of course, because the heavy burst damage is still gonna do great in those situations also. And you still want to do your Thunderclap for the bleed on all of them, but when there's that many guys, it's better to spam the Whirlwind instead of sweeping strikes. So yeah. Oh, and of course, when you're doing all that big AoE, you should use whatever trinket thing you got to, unused trinket to do more damage. For single target,
your sight is your downfall.
It's, pretty much the same as it was before.
Celerity is second to none.
We'll look at some talents a little bit in a second.
From the shadows, I witness your demise.
Could be using a... I had some stuff come off a cooldown I could have used there, but you can jump on that guy when he's flying over.
We sacrifice because we must.
If you
Mortal burdens would
do
only
it right.
impede our sacred duty.
Yeah, so
It was a mortal who exposed the folly of
I don't think Shockwave's too good as far as DPS goes. The damage is definitely a lot less. It's less investment because these take 2 points to get into. This one just takes 1 point. But even if you take this 350% damage thing, it's still not as good a damage as Spear Bastion and Thunder's Roar. As far as Avatar goes, Avatar is let me do some damage here. Gotta pull Goliath out of the circle so he's able to just spam the damn. Yeah, so Avatar is still decent. I don't know if it works out as far as the math goes for AoE damage. I feel like Thunderous Roar and Spear Bastion are probably better. Oh man, my thing's up. I didn't notice he didn't do this again. So yeah, Avatar's not bad. Strength based on your armor percent. Yeah, this guy just doesn't know this dungeon very well. So, yeah. Avatar is probably better for, like, bosses, single target damage. I think for AoE damage, it's, I like just having 2 big burst AoE damages.
Your defiance must be punished.
Yeah. We'll do this. We'll Warbreaker him. We'll Mortal Strike for the deep wounds. We'll put the Rend on him. We got a free execute there. And then we're using execute whenever our free execute thing pops up. And then if it's not up, then we are Mortal Striking. And then we are overpowering. And then we are cleaving. So that's kind of the priority here. Notice I'm cleaving. I'm not using slam at all. Slam is not on my bar. And I should be using these also. Shit.
None may stand against the Paragon.
I play a lot of tank and healer, so it's just kind of my mindset to go intercept those orbs. I'm all about making the dungeon go smoothly, even when
But you refuse to see the truth.
the tank or the healer aren't doing their job, type of thing.
That we serve a lie. And so, I listened to the jailer's
So yeah,
I learned of the great injustice you and the others
that's
thrust upon him, and
kind of
upon
my
us all.
thoughts as far as the
He
things.
seeks to free us from the prison we have.
Like I said, no slam
And for
whatsoever
that, he has earned my
for single target. If you have extra rage, that's when you're hitting leave. This, let's do 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 this. Well, sweeping strikes here, I guess. Make sure our Ren stays up. So yeah, big damage.
Accept
I
your
don't know what
defeat,
this hunter is
Archon.
doing.
I serve a far greater power now. The age of the Forsworn.
Way over geared, but he's not doing a lot of damage.
I will take control of the spires and forge new paragons to lead Empyrean.
So yeah,
I will strike you down.
concentrate here on actually making sure our bleeds are up and shit.
No matter the cost.
The spires obey my command. Perish among the clouds.
The spear!
So yeah, the move speed after you heroic leap is pretty awesome. Like just the mobility you get from kills. You get a 5% mobility or move speed there. It's all good stuff. That we can do this. We can do this. Now we're in execute range.
I control the power of Bastion itself. Be gone from this place.
So yeah, we don't get in Shadowlands there was they did a thing where everybody gets what's that called? Ignore pain is baseline. That's no longer a thing.
Must be abandoned.
But
The jailer's schemes have torn a schism
get out of here so we
in the ranks.
stop hearing them.
Nathrius' elite forces
Thing.
hold this ward, and will strike at us from here unless routed.
Yeah, so there's no longer ignore pain for everybody. I'm happy with that. You can still get intervene and rallying cry and stuff like that. These things are they're optional. Defensive stance is optional, but it's really good when you use it like at times where you can't deal damage. Like I did in that boss fight where I went to go soak the orbs. So I'm not hitting the boss at that time, so I switched to defensive stance so that I'm taking less damage during that. Now obviously if you can be doing damage, you generally don't want to be in defensive stance. It's only 10% less damage output that you do, but you're also missing out on the 3% crit chance that the battle stance gives you. That's new for the Dragonflight pre-patches. Now we get battle stance for 3% crit, so it's So you're missing out on that also if you switch to defensive stance. So yeah, lots of good things going on. We'll talk about that rotation stuff. Let's look at the damage I did first. Just the breakdown of the damage of that I did in the dungeon. So execute's still top damage. This execute's awesome, and of course, because I'm still getting similar to Shadowlands talents, is that I'm getting this talent where you get a free execute every now and then, which does maximum execute damage. Remove the cooldown of execute, of course. And then execute's usable on targets below 35% health, because normally it's like 20% health. And then there's a couple other talents here. Actually, we can just search here. These are the things that specifically do things for execute. So there's this thing gives you crit damage on execute. In addition to the regular base crit chance, and then this gives you base crit chance, and execute gives you a little bit of rage back, so that you can keep spamming execute basically. And these things down here are all execute, so definitely viable to go down here. The reason I went down here on the left side of the tree instead. By the way, I don't know how many more talent points we're gonna get at max level in Dragonflight. So I plan on getting a couple points in here. I don't think I'll get all three. I don't like the execute makes the damage from Mortal Strike on the target do more damage, because then you have to stop execute spamming. But it's probably worth doing, but it just makes your rotation a little more complicated. Because then you have to do 2 executes, Mortal Strike, 2 executes, Mortal Strike, type of thing. Assuming your Mortal Strike comes off cooldown that quickly. Your Mortal Strike cooldown actually wouldn't be off cooldown that quickly. So you do like 4 executes, 1 Mortal Strike or something, which would be which then you're not getting the maximum value out of this. Because if you look at this, you say, okay, execute makes them take more damage from your 25% more damage from your Mortal Strike. How much is the Mortal Strike doing? 3.2k, which comes out to, so it's an extra 800 damage per execute basically, except that since it's capped at 2, then you're like kind of missing out. If you have 2 stacks of it on the enemy already, then you won't. It's like, are you gonna stop executing? No, you're not. So you're. So it's a bit different from getting extra damage straight to the execute. So yeah, I don't really like that one. I would get this one and this one. And then this one down here, your Mortal Strikes and Cleaves against enemies above 30% health have a high chance to apply this thing that makes your execute do more damage when they fall below 30% health. This is it seems like something that would be really good in PvP, I think. where you're like arena PvP, where you're hitting guys, stacking up these stacks for this on Mortal Strike, and then as soon as they get below 30% health and you execute them, then it's just gonna do like 20,000 extra damage. But as far as I've tested this just against an elite mob in the world somewhere, and it was like I got like 6 or 7 stacks of it or something, and then by that point the elite mob is below 30% health. So it doesn't stack anymore. Your Mortal Strikes stop adding that debuff to the enemy once they get below 30% health. So I really wish it was just all the time your Mortal Strikes add the debuff to the enemy. It also works on cleaves, so it actually would be pretty good in my playstyle in the dungeon, where if I would just cleave spam more, not whirlwind at all, then and then once the enemies get low, that's when you use your sweeping strikes, execute spam, and it would do pretty good. But I just really don't like that it stops adding the debuff stacks once the monster falls below 30% health. So, yeah. With the when you have execute able to be used at monsters below 35% health, it sort of doesn't matter. Because at that point you don't really care about mortal striking anymore. You just want to execute spam. But yeah, I don't really like how it works per se. And just conceptually, I don't really like that it works with cleave. It feels like it should really just be a Mortal Strike thing. Because with the amount of cleaves I do in the dungeon, cleave, like I said, you're not really doing it for damage per se. It's damage per, as far as damage per rage goes, it's somewhere around as good as whirlwind for multiple targets. But what I'm mainly using it for is the applying deep wounds. But you see, I used it 33 times. I used cleave 33 times in the dungeon there. Whirlwind I used 22 times, and they were like relatively close on damage. You can probably completely skip whirlwind and just cleave. But the thing is, cleave does have a cooldown. I'm using the cleave cooldown reduction talent here. And that's largely because of I'm going for kind of a cleave filler for single target stuff type of thing. Like I said, not using slam at all, using cleave. So for single target, like like I said, you're gonna like do your Warbreaker thing so that they take 30% more damage from you. You're gonna definitely Mortal Strike them to apply the deep wounds so that they take more damage from you. You're going to rend them instead of Thunderclap. Thunderclap damage is really low. Rend is better for single target, which makes sense, of course. Although it's only 10 less rage, it's kind of weird to me that Rend costs this much rage, but whatever. And then, you're gonna apply those things that make them take more damage. You're gonna apply the bleed, Rend, and then you're gonna use any executes if available. You're gonna use overpowers, because overpower is better damage than cleave, and it increases the damage of your next Mortal Strike or cleave by 20%. That's from this talent up here, and then your overpower with this talent down here. Where's the tactician? Oh, that's what. Yeah. So, with this talent down here, your overpower has a chance to reset the cooldown of Mortal Strike and Cleave and reduce their rage costs by 10. So, so that lets you get more mileage out of your rage, basically, which is great. And then you're also getting the Tactician, of course, which is when you spend rage, you have a chance of resetting the cooldown of overpower. So let's see, is there any other stuff we got going on here? I still got that stupid talent where overpower deals AoE damage, which I hate. Like conceptually, I hate. But yeah, that's sort of the general thought process behind the that's why we're doing Leave instead of Slam for filler damage for single target. There's Slam talents over here because baseline Slam is garbage. I think there's only a couple talents that do anything with Slam. I don't know why they even give you Slam baseline. It feels like something that they should just make a node in the tree where it's like you gain Slam instead of giving you Slam and then but it's dog shit unless you get these talents type of thing. Heroic Leap does not do anything with Slam. So yeah, so if you spend 2 points over here, your Slam will do 60% more damage and a 15% crit chance. That makes it like okay, probably better than Cleave for single target, but I don't know why you would want to do that much investment into making Slam worthwhile, because you're still not going to Slam over your cooldown abilities. Like, you're not going to Slam over Mortal Strike, and you're not going to Slam over Overpower. Now, what it does do is these other talents. There's Slam and Whirlwind do 30% more damage, but now cost 10 more rage. Now, this is okay for Whirlwind. It is not okay for Slam. because Slam's a 20 rage ability. So that makes it cost 50% more rage, but only does 30% more damage. Whereas Whirlwind's a 30 rage ability, so it goes 33% more rage cost for 30% more damage. That's that's like definitely better for Whirlwind and worse for Slam. And like the only reason you would get this is for this talent over here. Whirlwind also slams your primary target. But yeah, so you're looking at 2 points here, 1 point here, 1 point here. Is that you're doing 4 points to make your slam good for when it hits with the whirlwind, or you just spend these 2 points here to make your slam decent single target. You could definitely get this point. Do a 3-point build for 3 points into slam, where you're taking this one where whirlwind slams your primary target and the 60% damage over here. Well, it's the 60% damage and the crit chance, because this is 30% more damage, but it costs more. For like, it's 30% damage for each of these points, but this one gives you the crit chance, and this one makes it cost more. So the cost more part is really really makes this bad for the slam. So it's really you're only really gonna get this for slam if you're getting this one also. So yeah, lots of things that I've been looking at, but let's look a little bit more. I didn't get to concentrate too well on explaining that single target damage and accident. Did I actually finish looking at this? So yeah, executes top damage, mortal strikes second on here. That's just with the sweeping strikes. Depending on the dungeon, I've seen my thunderous roar be up there a little higher. Thunderous roar in second, because it's just so much bleed burst damage. Spear bastion can also be higher. It just depends on how much stuff gets pulled at once, how many targets you can smash in that AoE burst damage. Whereas when there's fewer targets, that's when sweeping strikes gives you a lot more mileage. Deep wounds is all right on there, but you're really using it more because it makes the enemies take 27% more damage from you. My current gear level. Obviously, that's when you have more mastery. That's going to be more. What am I doing over here? Then the rend damage is all right. If I was better at paying attention, or if I had like a weak aura setup or something to somehow like better keep track of when my rend on targets expires, then that would be a little bit better on the damage as well. And let's see. Yeah, your auto attacks are on there. Not a big deal. Yeah, nothing else is too important. As you can see though, the whirlwind and the cleave they end up being a very low percentage of your damage, basically. So it's not really that important. Like I was saying, you could basically skip whirlwinding altogether, and you'd be fine if you just cleave spam, basically. So yeah. Yeah. This guy's got 246k health. Sounds like a good thing to look at single target on. So we're gonna charge in here to get some rage. We're gonna Warbreaker so he takes more damage, and Mortal Strike so he takes more damage. We're gonna Rend to apply the bleed, and then our Execute's not available. Well, we could do our cooldown damage stuff also, but we're hitting the Execute when we get our free Executes. Otherwise, we're using Mortal Strike. Otherwise, we're using Overpowers. And our Mortal Strike came back, and then that came back up, and then when that's all down, we cleave. Now you gotta keep in mind that the cleave can give you that stack of Overpower back up, and then Overpower can reset the cooldown on your Mortal Strike. So there's kind of this big priority chain of what you press, but at this point I've been focusing on my rotation so much that our Warbreaker came off cooldown, so we should be using that again, and also our Rend, our bleed on the target expired. So it's kind of hard to watch all these things. And yeah, you probably want like weak auras or something to give you a to better keep track of what buttons you should be pressing, basically, because it's easy to not notice that stuff came off a cooldown, or your bleed on the target expired and you need to reapply that when you're worried about this Execute, Mortal Strike, Overpower, Cleave rotation thing going on. Yeah, particularly with the Overpower resetting the cooldown on Mortal Strike is really where it sort of falls apart, I guess you could say, in that it's figuring out, like, watching which ones you can press basically is makes you forget about the your other cooldown stuff and your Rend, keeping those things, pressing those buttons. So yeah, I really want to make a weak aura or something to help me figure out like playing the optimal rotation for it. But yeah, overall the Arms Warrior is definitely feeling better than Shadowlands Arms Warrior, and a lot of that's really from the movement abilities, I would say, and the 5% move speed over here also helps. But the being able to heroic leap, and then it gives you that move speed bonus, and then you got your 2 charges of charge. And then you've also got that. Let me kill these things. And then you've also got that thing where you have 30% move speed for 8 seconds after you kill things. So all that movement combined just really lets you run around quite a lot. Lets you kind of zoom through the dungeons. You're able to keep up with like the demon hunters and the monks when they're zooming from one trash pack to the next in the dungeon. So, but also it's just great for solo content as well. So yeah, I think that's about all I wanted to talk about here for this video. Dragonflight Arms Warrior. Sorry, Dragonflight. I'm saying Dragonflight. Dragonflight Prepatch Arms Warrior. I forgot to also mention, I should have mentioned at the start here. I have all conduits removed. Not using any legendaries. And also not using covenant powers. So I'm a Kyrian covenant, so I have the Kyrian Spirit Bastion ability, but I'm not using that. I'm well aware that currently the current meta strategy is to be playing Venthyr for the Condemn ability, which lets you use execute on targets more than 80% health, basically. But they just like renamed it, so it replaces execute. So people are just spamming Condemn like crazy. So that's currently like the meta build if you're trying to do the most damage in dungeons and raids and whatever. But I don't care about that shit. I care about what's gonna be how you play the character when Dragonflight releases for Dragonflight content. So yeah. Yeah.